Okay, so be honest with me for a second. Have you ever caught yourself reading the same paragraph like 3 times in a row because your brain just won't stick with it? Or maybe you're trying to focus on literally anything, and within 5 minutes, you've already grabbed your phone to check, I don't know, just to check your emails, to check for the notifications or something. And here is the thing, and this is kind of terrifying. This is not because you are lazy, it's not because you have bad habits or you lack discipline. Your brain is actually being physically rewired by the internet. Like, your actual neurons are changing shape, and the science backing this up, it is absolutely chilling, I must tell you. So that is why today we are diving into this book called The Shallows: How the Internet is Changing the Way We Think, Read, and Remember by Nicholas Carr. And this book came out in 2010, and it was even a Pulitzer Prize finalist. And basically, this book, it's a deep dive into neuroscience and technology, and it argues something pretty wild, I must tell you, that the internet is not just changing how we get information, it's fundamentally restructuring how our brains actually work. And sadly, not in a good way. This is why I had to read this book. I noticed something really disturbing about myself. Like, I used to absolutely devour books, if I say devour books, but somewhere along the line that completely changed. Long form reading started feeling like work, and when I say work, like actual work, I would sit down with a book and my brain would just drift away, and after a few pages I would get this itch to just check my email or to scroll through literally anything else. And during a lesson, the teacher had recommended this book, and I said to myself, I have got to read this. Then I also saw an article where the writer straight up admits something that really resonated with me. He says, I'm not thinking the way I used to think. I can feel it most strongly when I'm reading. Immersing myself in a book or lengthy article used to be easy, but that's rarely the case anymore. Now my concentration often starts to drift after 2 or 3 pages. And that hits me like a truck, because here is a guy whose entire career is writing, someone who needs deep concentration to do his job, and is even saying he lost the ability to really immerse himself in reading. So it got me wondering, if it is happening to him, then how much more the rest of us? Okay, so here is Nicholas' main argument, and I would say it's really both elegant and also super unsettling. He said that our brains are plastic, and when I say plastic, not like it's made of plastic, but neuroplastic, meaning that they physically reorganize themselves, the neurons, based on how we use them. And he puts it perfectly when he writes in his book, the brain has the ability to reprogram itself on the fly, altering the way it functions. So every technology that we've adopted, be it the maps, the clocks, the books, whatever technology it is, it actually reshapes our neural pathways. Like, it physically changes our brain structure. And the internet is another technology. And with the internet, with all its constant interruptions, hyperlinks, notifications, multimedia, everything, it's just training our brain to skim, to scan, to multitask. And here is the trade-off, and Nicholas Carr doesn't hold back on this at all. He has said that while we are getting better at that stuff, the internet, we are also actively weakening our ability to focus deeply, our ability to read carefully, and to think in a sustained, contemplative way. So in his book, it describes it like this: what the net seems to be doing is chipping away my capacity for concentration and contemplation. My mind now expects to take in information the way the net distributes it, in a swiftly moving stream of particles. Now, what makes Carr's approach really interesting is that he's not some anti-technology guy ranting about how the internet is evil, or how we will all die, or how the AI would kill us. He's a tech writer. He loves what the internet makes possible, but he started getting genuinely alarmed by what he was personally losing as an individual. And the whole book is actually grounded in actual neuroscience. And when I tell you it's actual neuroscience, specifically when it talks about the concept of neuroplasticity, and he also backed everything up with dozens and dozens of studies just showing how our brains physically change based on our habits. And this is the way it works. When we read books, we literally build neural circuits for deep, focused thoughts. But when we browse the web, we build circuits for rapid information processing and distraction. And he even traces the entire history of reading itself back to the days, the technology of the book. It was also revolutionary, just like the internet is right now. And at one point, it's even trained the monks to develop these powers of concentration. And he wrote it this way in his book, that in the quiet spaces opened up by the prolonged, undistracted reading of a book, people made their own associations, drew their own inferences, and the analogies fostered their own ideas. And now he argues that we are basically undoing centuries of cognitive evolution. We are going back to a more scattered, primitive way of thinking with the internet. And it's just that for now, it is being supercharged by algorithms that are literally designed to just fragment our attention. Alright, so let me break down the 5 biggest ideas which I had gotten from this book. And the first one was the idea of neuroplasticity, the fact that it is everything. He explained how London taxi drivers literally they grow larger hippocampi from memorizing all the streets which they travel to, and how blind people's visual cortexes get repurposed to other senses. And he made a very powerful observation. He wrote that the tight bonds between neurons don't just allow us to easily repeat the physical and mental tasks we've already learned. They also prevent us from learning different ways to do the same things. So we basically become neurologically what we think. And this isn't a metaphor. This is a measurable physical change in the brain. So what's the takeaway here? every single hour you spend online is physically rewiring your brain, whether you realize it or not. Secondly, the second takeaway, it spoke about the concept of the literary mind, and this is the deep, contemplative way of thinking that emerged with book culture. It talks about how sustained reading creates this unique, very unique mental space, where we are able to follow complex arguments, we are able to make unexpected connections, and we are also able to develop empathy by really inhabiting someone else's perspective, the perspective of the author of that book. And he referenced Marianne Wolf, who says that we are not only what we read, we are also how we read. But here is the thing. This mode of thinking requires long periods of uninterrupted attention. And unfortunately, the internet makes that nearly impossible. And he warned us, he said, the net is by design an interruption system, a machine geared for dividing attention. That's a penny for your thoughts. Going to the third takeaway, which I have gotten from this book, and this one is kind of disturbing. It's about the memory. Nicholas Carr explains that the internet basically functions as an outboard brain, and we are constantly offloading our memory to Google instead of actually learning things and storing them in the long-term memory in our brain. But here's the catch, and he explains it better than I can, so I would read from the book. He says that the web provides a convenient and compelling supplement to personal memory. But when we start using the web as a substitute for personal memory, bypassing the inner processes of consolidation, we risk emptying our minds of their riches. And wisdom isn't just about being able to access facts, it's just about having this rich internal database of knowledge that lets us make creative connections between ideas. So when we outsource all of our memory, we are sacrificing the raw material of original thought. And get this, he also quotes one neuroscientist that says that the influx of competing messages that we receive whenever we go online not only overloads our working memory, it makes it much harder for our frontal lobes to concentrate our attention on any one thing. Fourthly, he absolutely demolishes the myth of multitasking. Study after study shows that what we call multitasking is actually just rapid task switching, and it makes us worse at everything. He cites a research showing that when we go online, we enter an environment that promotes cursory reading. And when I say cursory reading, it means hurried and distracted thinking and superficial learning. Heavy internet users actually become dependent on constant stimulation. So in the research, it saw that heavy internet users perform poorly on tests of sustained attention, even when they are offline. So the internet isn't just distracting us while we are using it. It is literally training us to be distractible all of the time. And the fifth takeaway from this book is that there are also economic incentives behind all of this. Companies like Google, Facebook, TikTok, they profit from fragmented attention. And the more we click, the more ads we see. So these platforms are literally engineered to prevent us and to interrupt us, to prevent the kind of deep focus that reading requires. So he puts it bluntly in his book. He said that the last thing these companies want is to encourage leisurely reading or slowly concentrated thought. It is in their economic interest to drive us to distraction. We think we are the customers, but sadly, well, we are not. Our attention is the product that is being sold here. So, which takes us to the next part. Who is this book for? So, who should read this book? Honestly, if you have ever felt like your attention span isn't what it used to be, then this book is for you. If you find yourself struggling to finish books, or if you work in a field that requires deep thinking, that you have to write, you have to make research, you have to be creative at your work, then I say you need to read this book. It is also super important for parents who are trying to figure out screen time, or educators who are watching their students struggle with sustained focus. And also, even for you as an individual, if you've ever felt this guilt about your internet habits, trust me, I have been there and I am still there, unfortunately, but couldn't really articulate why, Carr in his book gives you the science backing it up, the vocabularies, and everything you need to actually understand what is at stake. And that being said, this isn't a light read at all. It's pretty dense with neuroscience and a lot of intellectual history and a lot of research. So if you're looking for a quick productivity hack or whatever quick thing that you need, you would find that in this book. And if you're totally fine with shallow browsing and you don't really value deep reading, I don't think this book is for you. But if you are in the earlier categories which I mentioned, you need to get this book. So what is brilliant about this book for me is the research, to be very honest. The research is incredibly meticulous. He synthesizes the psychology, neuroscience, history, media, and all of these things into a coherent narrative. And his writing is also clear. It's really clear and beautiful, and it is just amazing. Also, for me, the historical sections about how past technologies have shaped human consciousness are really, really interesting for me to read. And I also just greatly appreciate his honesty about his own struggles. It makes the whole argument feel relatable instead of someone being preachy and all of these things. So the neuroscience thing is really compelling but also accessible, and he never talks down on his readers. And he also never gets lost in the jargons of the biology and all of these things. So he's a very brilliant writer, I must say. He's very brilliant, and I definitely learned a lot from this book. Ultimately, The Shallows is about choice and awareness. So once you understand how technology shapes cognition, you can make conscious decisions about how you actually want to live and how you want to think. Okay, so here is my final verdict. I'll give the book a solid 9 out of 10 because it's genuinely one of those rare books that permanently changes how you see the world and yourself. Is it perfect? Maybe not, but it is essential. It is absolutely essential because reading this might be the most important thing you do for your brain this year. And trust me, I'm not even exaggerating. So if you have noticed your attention span shrinking, or you miss being able to really lose yourself in deep reading, this book will both explain why that is happening and also motivates you to actually do something about it. And here's the irony: you will need to turn off all your devices and really concentrate to get through it. But that's exactly the point. So here is my question for you. Have you noticed changes in your own ability to focus and read deeply? Do you think the internet has genuinely rewired your brain? Or do you think this is just, overblown moral panic about new technology? Let me know. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. I will actually read all of them. And if you found this helpful, throw a like on the video and consider subscribing. And yeah, alright, I'll see you in the next one. Now go read something, like actually read something. Put your phone in another room, put your gadget away, and just read something and tell me how it goes. Yes, seriously. Catch you guys later. Bye.